Yeah, it's good to be here. It feels like we're coming out of the tunnel. It was a tough year in the mining space, but even like companies on my panel, even though there was tough market, they moved their agendas forward and they're in a good position to capitalize. And I'm optimistic once again. It's nice to be. It feels like we're past the malaise. So onward and upward. So, where things stand for me with the mining shares, it looks like the bottom is behind us as gold and silver look to push towards a new high. I totally believe we're going to see a new high in both gold and silver. I was listening earlier to Peter's comments, Peter Caruth, the newsletter writer before me, on his comments about silver. And I've presented a lot of those slides over the years regarding silver. And I'm always bullish on silver, for when that moment comes. But unlike gold, silver has teased investors. That's why people have been frustrated and disappointed and almost hated at this point, because they've been in, nothing happened, and they gave up, right? So there is a moment coming, though, when I believe silver is going to outperform gold. And when that happens, it's going to be a joyful opportunity for those who own the right silver stocks. And some of the ones he had on his list, I covered in my newsletter for years. So right now, I see the smartest investors are quietly buying the best values at a discount. Usually after tax loss selling, we'd see a little bit more of a bump up, but it was still relatively quiet. Volumes are better, but still low. And I just think this is a great buying opportunity. Investment is all about getting the timing right. And I think the timing right now is perfect for what I see coming, some big moves in the precious metals and other metals too. I mean, look at what's happening across the board with base metals, nickel, copper, lead, zinc, they're all moving up. The mining stocks have not yet caught up to that. So the actual physical metals prices are leading the way. Within the exploration world, I see a lot of advanced stage projects that seem poised for a breakout moment when the market comes back. And you can get some of these stocks at a great discount. In my newsletter, I'm going to be talking about that this next month. If anybody's interested, what I see is the best companies that have the lowest amount of risk with the greatest upside. And so the combination of these items, I think, spell major opportunity for big speculative gains coming up. And it's been a painful process the last couple of years. But we're going to make money again. So that's the exciting part. I also see a growing mismatch between supply and demand for resources and unavoidable reckonings in the making. There's so many of these situations that are getting to a breaking point. And of course, whenever the market does that and we see new discoveries and advancement of projects, M&A activity greatly increases as these metal prices push towards new highs. So the main theme, for those of you who don't know me, in my newsletter, since I started it in 2000, and my main theme for why I was getting involved with the precious metals in particular was because I saw currency debasement that was going to be a long-term factor, and that this was going to be good for gold. At the time, gold was $253 an ounce. I saw nothing but upside for gold. So you can say, wow, 23 years later, yeah, gold's just knocking on the door of 2000 again, right? 10x from where I started. But it's been such an up and down journey, up, back, right? And for those of you who follow this, I'm wearing my gold tie. This has been the lucky tie for the last 20 years. So whenever you see me at the conference with this tie on, it means that, and it's been a good omen, thankfully, that we're about ready to run to a new high. So currency debasement is just a sad reality of what's happened, because in 1971, August 15th, Richard Nixon took us off the gold standard. He said it was temporary, but of course it wasn't. Politicians lie. And here we are. We have all this chaos and confusion because there's no standard of value anymore. It's all this paper currency that's motivated by political promises that are worthless. And this currency imbalance is getting to the point where it's crazy. Well, in my view, it looks like, the game for the dollar is at its end because 80% of the world is just fed up with this nonsense and they don't want anything to do with it anymore. And who can blame them? We've exported, as Americans, we've exported our inflation to all these other countries, and they don't want to be a part of this anymore. So there's obviously some big changes coming with that. And it's proven true that this theme was one of the key points to follow through this precious metals bull market, up and downs, but in a secular bull market overall. And the second theme was the war and rumors of war narrative. Just a very troubling thing to think in this modern age, we have all this technology, we have all these wonderful things. A lot of people are living at the highest level and quality of life they've ever had. And yet, in many ways, our society is catastrophically failing. From when you see the lawlessness and the violence and you think, well, there's such a disconnect here. How can this be? But the war and rumors of war is going to be with us. And people have asked me recently, what do I think about Russia and China? And I said, I don't think we have to worry that we're going to be in a war with Russia and China because they don't have to do anything. Just let America implode. We're destroying ourselves. And, it's sad, but we're just watching this happen. And part of that is because of the subversion of truth. Now, this is one that I've added recently to the themes that I follow, because all of these three themes, what they have in common is that they're unsustainable. And something very difficult is going to happen at some point when these three themes come to their conclusion. The subversion of truth is just shocking to me. And, when governments subvert truth and try to make laws to protect the lies that they're telling, then once they've done that, then they preach tolerance. And when tolerance is preached, then if you're not tolerant, then you are intolerant and you are no longer accepted by the culture and the society. So I see that as a big problem. There was a recent situation where I live. My wife and I own a condo right across the border here in Blaine, and we go back and forth between our ranch and Laramie. And over the Christmas holiday, right before the holiday, there was a big hullabaloo in the city of Laramie, which is a very small town, and at the high school. And there was a group of people that were trying to push the high school principal to put kitty litter in the high school for kids who identify as cats. And I mean, the absurdity of it, thankfully the high school principal said not only no, hell no, and of course that causes great division. And I just thought how sad this is that we are literally destroying ourselves over this stuff, that there's people that the hatred is so vivid in this stuff, it's crazy. Anyway, subversion of truth is any society that has gone down that road, it doesn't end well for that society. Let me just put it that way. So does truth matter in our society anymore? Truth, in my view, has always been and is being turned on its head by society, government, and mainstream media. Opposite of truth is lies, deception, and falsehoods. I mean, you look everywhere, I see a lot of deception out there. The mainstream media is full of lies and deceptions. Absolute truth, in my view, does exist, but whether people understand it or not, everybody makes up their own mind about these things. But history clearly shows that when governments, societies ignore and subvert truth, the end of that society or political structure is near. George Orwell, the further a society drifts from the truth, the more it will hate those that speak it. It's just hard to believe that we're at that. The problem is if we don't make a stand for the truth, we inevitably, by default, make a stand against it. And I think we need more people like this high school principal to just say, no, I'm not going along with this. No, this is not right. So there's a guy, if you want to read a really good essay that was written, Victor Davis Hanson, about the destruction of America. He said it would be hard to imagine any planned agenda to destroy America that would have been as injurious as what we have suffered the last several years. He wrote a 10-point essay about what is the 10 points of how America is being destroyed. And this goes right along with the Khrushchev in the 50s. He told Eisenhower, we're going to take over your country and not a shot will be fired. Well, you look at what's happened over the last 70 years, my goodness, they're succeeding. Will they succeed is the ultimate question. I guess that's up to Americans to decide for themselves. So 2023, reason I'm so bullish now on gold, what I see happening, if you look at what gold's done just in the last couple of months, it's moved up dramatically. And yet, is there any real information in the media? No, but there are some things going on behind the scenes. When I was here in November at the MIF, I spoke about all these black swans I've been following over the years. I feel no need to follow that stuff anymore. It's ad nauseum. It's so many things that could happen potentially. I don't think I need to talk about it. I think people get the idea. And it's just like right after the conference, what happened? FTX debacle, right? The shocking revelations that came out of that black swan mess and the implications for those investors that aren't going to get their money back, including the Ontario Teachers Union, right? A lot of these big underfunded pensions are desperate. They need to invest money where they can make big money. So they're taking huge risks. And look what's happened, right? They lose the money, right? And a lot of these pensions are super underfunded. But I believe inflation is going to continue. As we're seeing just recently, I've been saying this is coming. When you get a big inflation, it's not going away. It doesn't matter what the U.S. government, the Fed says, the inflation is going to continue. And when inflations happen, massive layoffs happen. If you've seen in the tech world, there's all kinds of layoffs. Up to 10% of employees just boom, boom, boom across the board in all the tech companies. That's just the beginning, in my view. It's very sad, but it's not something that I'm really happy about. But I'm at 65 years old this year. I've been through the inflation in the late 70s in the United States. And I can remember that happened. We were waiting in gas lines for 3 hours just to get half a tank of gas. And, we were witnessing, I grew up in suburban Philadelphia where it was kind of middle class, a little bit of upper middle class. But all of a sudden, a lot of the white collar fathers didn't have a job. And it was tough. So I see inflation is going to have that effect. I also, as I've been talking about in the last year, the great monetary reset is underway. Watch what the WEF, the World Economic Forum, is doing. That they're part of the players behind that. In my view, it's going to be ultimately the Fed that will destroy the U.S. dollar to usher in its cashless system, its cashless society called the CBDC, Central Bank Digital Currency. As we speak right now, they're testing it right now. And they're jonesing to get this, but I think they're holding back because they got to make sure there's no bugs in this system. They got to make sure before they roll it out that it's going to work. As I said, the war and rumor, war narrative, seldom does power shift, however, without some form of deadly conflict. That's a study that was done by Ray Dalio. Every 80 years, when these empires shift, it's always related to that cross point, always seems to have a big war event. And so I believe precious metals are finally going to push to new highs, not just gold, but I think silver is finally going to eclipse this $50 ceiling it's been under for all these years. It's the only asset that hasn't eclipsed its old 1980 inflationary high. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's grossly undervalued. So I'm going to skip some of these. Because I want to give the time to my people here. Why a monetary reset is underway. I could talk about that. 80% of the world, like I said, no longer wants to be under the dollar. The depegging from the dollar is the end game for the financial system, I believe, as we know it. And of course, the powers that shouldn't be in this world are all too anxious to bring about its agenda, the CBDC. So the pipe dream of the powers that shouldn't be in this world, the bankers who run the world would love to have a cashless society with a digital currency using a social credit score to manage everything. You want to talk about losing freedom and control, that's the way to do it. And those who have opposing views or criticism will not be able to participate in the new system of total hegemonic power and control. This is a merger between government and corporations, and that's what they want. Will they get it? We don't know, but that's what they want. They're clear about it, what they want. Michael Burry recently said, I don't know if you know who he is. He was the guy during the 2008 economic crisis that predicted that, made, I forget how much it was, billions in that transaction. But he says, economic hell on earth is coming and 90% of people are totally unprepared. Well, nobody wants to hear that. I really don't want to hear that. We're going to make money in gold and silver and mining stocks. But what kind of world are we going to have? I don't know. That's the troubling part. So we're set to rally. I believe mining shares are poised, in my view, to make the biggest gains we've ever seen. That's quite a statement when you compare it to the 93 to 96 run, 2002 to 2006, 2009, 2011, 2016, 20, 21. But this particular moment is going to be when silver breaks out. And I think that's going to be the thing that really differentiates this from previous bull markets. I think you're going to see silver break out over 50 and go to much, much higher levels. And so there's big opportunity with that. In my view, it's all about power and control, divide and conquer for the people that run our world. Of course, the politicians, in my view, are just puppets. What we are witnessing in the big picture that will affect us all is the rapid changes that are happening, which go in the face of liberty and freedom-loving citizens worldwide. The Great Reset, all these unelected United Nations pandemic treaty, these are unelected officials that are making policy for the world. They have unlimited power to dictate to all nations. These World Economic Forum people, the commissars behind the European Union, these are not elected people. And yet these people are making major decisions for the world. So summing it all up, I believe a crescendo of events is now unfolding. The circumstances of the last 3 years are all leading to a great reset moment, which I will believe will give amazing power to these I refer to as the PTSB. The Fed cannot stop the inflation it has created, and they know that, and they'll eventually pivot. They're raising interest rates, I think, another 0.25. And I think that's going to happen. But anyway, this inflation, along with many other problems that have been created, will be used to be a cover to bring about their ultimate game plan, which is the one world digital currency, the real great reset that has been the agenda all along. A note of hope. I like what this guy, American Scholars Group, Michael Rechtenwald, he said, because the goals of the Great Reset depend on the obliteration not only of free markets, but of individual liberty and free will, it is perhaps ironically unsustainable. Like other attempts at totalitarianism, the Great Reset is doomed to ultimate failure. That doesn't mean, however, that it won't, again, like those earlier attempts, leave a lot of destruction in its wake, which is all the more reason to oppose it now and with all our might. My 2 newsletters, The Mining Speculator, The Insider Alert. If you want to subscribe, discoverynexus.com. Thanks so much for listening.